You guys are funny. I love you guys. Thank you.
Hey, good evening and welcome. We're back after having a week's break. Obviously, we are joined by the beautiful legends as they are. We've got Christine Malek, the Sassy Coach. We've got Nick Ronald, the legend himself. I keep forgetting your nickname. What you do? It's Secret Influence. That's it.
Yes, that's mine. That's normally my thing.
How do I? See, a lot has been going on. We've got Nance, the wonderful author, and the everything she is. We've got the comeback coach, Richard Kaufman, who's playing hide and seek somewhere. Hi, Emma. Hope you're well. We're going to be talking. Obviously, we have to put it out there. It's a trigger warning. This video. It's a trigger warning. We're going to be talking about not just domestic violence in general, but what we don't know about domestic violence. Now, obviously, Christine came up with the title, so I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, where do I start? Things that you don't know about domestic violence. First of all, let's start with what you do know. Maybe you don't. So currently, the current statistic for domestic violence here in the States, and I know over where you're at, Adam, it is different. But here in the States, 1 in 3 women experience abuse and domestic violence. 1 in 4 men. That's here in the States. Pre-COVID, those statistics were 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men. We've kind of gone downhill, haven't we? I mean, they're just shit. As far as I'm concerned, I hate those statistics. Whether it's the 1 in 3 for women or the 1 in 4 it used to be, I don't like them. We can fix this. So that's maybe something you do or don't know. What else don't you know? Yeah, that 1 in 4 for men, it used to be 1 in 7. That's a huge jump. Huge. What happened?
I think it's quite. I think a lot of people, several people don't know. I think a lot of people will be shocked that they don't know that statistic is as high as that, isn't it? I mean, that's quite 1 in 4.
Yeah.
That's quite shocking.
Yeah. And if you want to talk mental health, Adam, and guests and panel, the biggest mental health issue that we face as being victims of domestic violence and abuse, you'll never guess. Oh, maybe Nancy, do you know? No? The biggest issue that we face is homelessness. That's one of the biggest health issues.
That's in England as we speak.
Yeah. Okay. 1 in 4 and 1 in 6 to 7 men. Yeah. That's what's reported. How many do you think go unreported?
They're always a year off, aren't they? Always a year off.
I think that's the challenge with mental health and other related things is it's so underreported. These things are sensitive around it. I mean, whether it's mental health or domestic violence or these things, it's so massive. I think it is massively unreported, and that's part of the challenge of how addressing these things as we don't realise actually the scale of it because of the sensitivity around it. So much of it is hidden, particularly domestic violence, because it's such often hidden behind closed doors in a sense, isn't it? So that is part of it.
Yes. And And as much as, we may think heart issues, diabetes, because our diets and stress and all those things, those physical things that our body goes through, homelessness is the biggest one here in the States, because women are faced with stay with the abuser or be homeless, because shelters are not, excuse me, they're not the greatest over here in the States, which is why I'm working on the nonprofit. We're comfortable going back to what we know. Yep, the trauma bond, absolutely. That's a huge part of it. It's homelessness, because we have nowhere to go. There's no solution for us because, like you said, Nick, we do sweep it under the carpet. It is a behind the closed door conversation that happens. It's things we can change if we address it like this. And yes, this is October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month here in the States. So
I think sorry, that's I don't know what you say, Chris. I think a lot of people, domestic violence say, why didn't the person leave? Is that bad? But I think it's so complicated. There's like I said, the practical side of, well, if they leave, where will they, where they live, if they're perhaps a relation, it depends on the part financially, where there's practical side, but also, there's a tie there, it's a partner, and whatever's going on, there's that relationship, part of the relationship. But I think that's all the misconceptions about it. I think a lot of people say, well, if you're suffering domestic violence, why are you staying in the relationship? Why are you staying in the house? You should leave. But it is so much complicated, because there's.
Nick, you have no idea. And in general, when we say abuse and domestic violence, we always presume it's physical. That is not the only form of abuse and domestic violence. It is not. And sometimes the psychological is way worse than the physical. I was beat so bad with a rubber mallet that my wrist was broken and my ribs were cracked. 3 ribs were cracked. I was shot in the back of the head. Okay, those are facts. But the psychological abuse, and those heal. My bones got better, my ribs healed. Obviously, I'm alive from the gunshot wound. But the psychological abuse that I suffered from this man and throughout my whole life was just, that one took me years to adjust and fix. It was a lot. It's a lot that you deal with. So when we say that because of that psychological abuse, we're so bonded to that person that we can't make clear decisions. I've always stated from day one that it's either we don't walk on eggshells, we walk on shards of glass. Okay, eggshells break, glass cuts, and they cut deep, and those deep wounds are there for a long time. They heal, but it takes a long time to heal.
We don't talk. We don't talk.
We don't.
We stay in that repressed place where it's easier to lie than it is to tell the truth, until it's no longer easier. When we enter that space whereby the physical begins, we've passed the line. We've passed the line in so many ways, and the fear of being homeless is real. It's real. And what if you've got children, and I mean it's a big long list, and yet confiding in a friend is beautiful. I know so many times that if only I had confided in somebody, I may not have been able to necessarily leave, yet I would have had a safe haven to go to speak to. I did speak to friends, and yet most of them couldn't understand, because the illusion was so great, so grand.
Yeah, that's the other thing is that how do we teach those that have never, or let them experience those that have never experienced any form of abuse? One, you are correct, Nancy, going to that person, that friend, and saying, hey, my significant other hit me last night. They don't know how to handle that. There's no training in that. Police are trained, they're supposed to recognize those signs of abuse, but the basic general public out there has no idea how to deal with that. If I went to my friends back then and said, even when my wrist was broke, I was working. I made an excuse. Had somebody had that wherewithal, that knowledge to say, Christine, you've come in here with your, a little extra makeup on your eyes. You're wearing long sleeves, and it's not that cold out. And this was in Florida. You're telling me you've got a cast on your wrist. We're noticing these signs. How can we help you? And that's probably the biggest thing. I always advise anybody that wants to listen that if you think you have a friend, a family member, never ask, are you okay? Because our first response is always going to be, yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. Fine.
Single
I'm
word
fine. Yeah,
responses.
it's fine. Yeah. But
Is
if
it-
you say, how can I help? That makes a big difference.
It's so I'm working in schools and with a lot of vulnerable children, and one of the things that's come out, for the training I've had is there's with abuse, potential abuse of children. There's physical abuse, sexual abuse, there's emotional abuse, and there's neglect. And there's there's these sort of 4 types. There's obviously overlaps, but they're saying with the physical abuse is often one to get physical, signs you can see on the child, but the other 3. It's more you'd only know by change of behaviour, really. With the emotional abuse, the sexual, the neglect, and I think that's the thing. Like you said, it's unless there's an obvious physical sign, we have to look at the behavior, be aware of those behaviour changes. They're not just talking about children, but whether it's a friend or a colleague. If there's a behaviour change, something's not quite right. Is there a conversation you can try and facilitate to have to find out whether there's something going on that you could support them with? Because it's like you said.
How do you approach it, Nick? You're trained, okay? You're trained to recognize those non-physical signs, okay? Hairdressers here in the States are encouraged to go to there's a special nonprofit out there that you can actually take an online test to be trained in how to recognize those signs, okay? Because you're with a hairdresser. Nancy, you know this, that if we go to the hairdresser, sometimes we're a little easier to talk about what's going on in our life because it's a stranger. They know me, but they don't. I only share what I want to share. Hairdressers are being trained on how to recognize those signs. Our law enforcement, medical professionals, they're all trained to recognize these. That's all too late. It's all too late. I'm not saying they're not wanted and they're not needed and they're not appreciated, but we need to train our friends and family, coworkers, bosses and HR and all, everyone needs to understand that if you're seeing those signs. And Nick, it's the same for kids as it is with adults, okay? Our mood changes, our behavior changes. If we were graded, our grades would definitely drop, okay?
Sure.
Those signs are still there. They don't change because we're adults. But as the general population, we're not trained in how to recognize that. And that is one of the things that I teach my clients and on the podcast that I give, the interviews that I do, my own podcast is all those tips and tools that, open your eyes. They're there if we choose to see them, to see those signs. They're there.
I think behaviour change, if someone's behaviour changes, there's a reason for that, particularly if it's changing in a way that is obviously not a positive way, then there's a reason something's causing that then change their behaviour. And I think that is a clear sign that, something's going on, because people's behaviour is no reason, is it? That's
perfect. Exactly. Perfect example of that is, before all the abuse that I went through, I was outgoing. I talked to everybody a lot like I am now. Okay. Although now I'm a lot louder about what I do. But back then I was an outgoing person. I was caring. I was loving. I had friends. Okay. And over time, and it was a long period of time that very slowly dwindled away. So if you're, you have a friend that she's, Okay, this week she says, yeah, she'll get together and comes up with an excuse. Sounds like a plausible excuse. Okay, I can buy it this week. Next week, we're supposed to gather. We're supposed to do this. We're going to have family dinner. But little by little, if that person who's being abused is no longer involved in normal functions and situations and going out with friends and family, or, if she's forcing herself to go, she'll sit there quietly. And this is for he. I say she, but clearly from the statistics, it's for he. That doesn't change. That if they're quiet and becoming those behavioral changes, that is a huge red flag. That's when you do not ask, are you okay? Do not ask that. You almost have to be direct and confront it and say, listen, and I did this and I've suggested this. You get that person, you get a cup of coffee, you get a latte, you get a Coke, a soda. Hey, let's go for a drive. They're in a moving vehicle. They can't get out of the vehicle. And you say, listen, I've noticed these changes. I love you dearly. I want to see you make it through. I can see something's going on with you. Can we please talk about it? Oh, that person will definitely fight it because of the stigma. So that we have to be stern and say, I'm not stopping this vehicle until we have this conversation. Because one of the other things that I teach is there are 3 words in the English language that are the hardest to say. I need help. We cannot say those words. And it takes a lot to say them. When you say it, you are so empowered that you have people out there that are going, yes, let me help you. I am just dying to help you. What can I do to get you through this situation? Who can I call? Who can we talk to? How do we make this better? How do we get you? What are the steps that we can take to do this? And if I don't have the answers, we'll find somebody who can. But it's got to start with us being able to, that abused person, being able to say, I need help. And it's hard. Trust me, I know it's hard.
And to take the action for the abused person out there, go to a friend's house. Go there now. Go.
Yes.
Dial that phone. Get in that car, dial that phone and say, I'm on my way to you now.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Dial 988.
Yeah. Obviously, there's a number in England as well, which I can't remember what it is. But obviously, we spoke about
is the number. 911.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. Well, we spoke about schools and the place. But Richard, let's talk about the military, because obviously you served in that. What is it like, domestic violence within that?
Well, domestic violence and military sexual trauma on both sides of the spectrum, male and female, are both running rampant. And only 3% of the people, male and female, I think the female's a little bit higher, will not talk about it until normally. And I think me and Nance talked about this when she was on my show, that usually a person won't come out with this stuff until they're in their 50s and 60s. So here somebody's holding on to this stuff. If they served in the military when they were 20 or they were assaulted at the age of 22, it's not coming out, if it comes out at all, in their 50s and 60s. But the thing is, in the military, you have a lot of A-type personalities where if I get my...
Is it freezing?
Lost them.
Lost the audio.
Well, it must be this storm, isn't it? That's going above us. That's going around. So yeah.
And a lot of people don't think that men can be sexually assaulted, and they can. But the thing is, now I want to flip the script in a way, is because there's also a lot of people in the U.S. I don't know about Canada, in the UK, but I know a lot of my guys' friends their wives and girlfriends get them so mad, and then the woman says, "Go ahead, hit me. I know you won't, because you're going to go to jail, lose the house, and lose the kids." So there's also that, where a lot of men, a lot of people will assault somebody when you keep goading them on. But something I want, if you ladies wouldn't mind talking about, is this is generational. Usually if there's an abuser, there's somebody down the line that was an abuser. Like when I come home every day from work, I kiss my daughter on the forehead. I kiss my wife. I hug and kiss my boys. They're 22 and 19 years old. I tell them I love them, and they always see me loving on their mother. That's what they're going to see, and that's what they're going to do. But I also know, I tell my daughter every morning when I kiss her, "You're beautiful. Daddy loves you. Nobody will ever love you more than I love you." So she knows what to expect from a man. So I think we need to really talk about that, how abuse, a lot of times, like suicide, is generational.
Can I address, Richard, first your comment about, because I think it needs to, the fact that that woman will egg that man on, because that is a huge issue. That is a huge issue. It is also a form of abuse. Okay. Or, even if the tables are turned, if it's a man egging on a woman and instigating that woman, or that woman instigating that man, and using those statistics and using that stigma of, "I'm a woman, I'm not going to get arrested, you are," against that man, that is a form of mental abuse. You could classify it as narcissism if you'd like. I don't care what you call it. It's still a form of abuse. And that is wrong. And women think that that's okay to do. And it is not. That is so wrong. And if a man does it to a woman to get her to act on it, that's just as wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. Plain
And
and
before we move on to the next subject, something I wish you guys would talk about, because there's such thing as financial abuse.
yes.
There may be a man or a woman that makes more money than the husband or the wife, and they're like, "Well, it's the golden rule. Whoever has the gold rules." And a lot of that can start a whole lot of emotional stuff when you do that, the financial abuse.
Yes.
Yeah,
But
I think.
So
Sorry, Nick, but I think the biggest cause for relationship breakdowns, arguments, divorce, you name it, isn't just lack of communication. It's about money.
Mm-hmm.
It's about money, and I think I think we do need to discuss this, but also talk about spiritual abuse as well.
Mm-hmm.
because I think a lot of these things tie into about control, and abuse can often be about its power and control, of someone controlling or trying to control the other person, or using the power relationship in a negative way, and using financial abuse is about that. It's about withholding the finance, controlling the finances to control the other person. I think it's I think that's something that I think that's something that needs to be addressed. It's why is this need for control and power? But
Getting the financial records on point as well. What I mean by on point, to be exact and precise, is we have a banker, we have an accountant. If you don't have an accountant, if you don't have a banker, put it in an email. Write those things down. Write how you are being financially strapped. Write it down. Get it on paper. Send it to someone. Send it to yourself. So you've got a copy of an email. Send it to someone that you barely know. Get it out there to say, "This is my financial circumstances." Because even the most dire financial circumstances can be helped. The most dire financial circumstances can be helped. Because if you're in a situation whereby you can't leave because your finances are that bad, you're that tied to that debt, then a separation agreement is going to get that ball rolling in the direction of your own protection. Because it's going to get worse. It's going to get a lot worse.
Yeah.
It's going to get a
So
lot
when
worse.
I started really delving into this and started my podcast about a year ago, in fact, it was exactly a year ago because I started in Domestic Violence Awareness Month, there was recognized 5 types of abuse. Okay. Physical, mental, psychological, verbal, and sexual. Okay. As of I think I wrote a post about it maybe a month ago. There's now classified 8 different types of abuse. Spiritual, the financial, you'd be surprised with. So the technological, okay, and that is basically that stalker that stalks you online, comments and bad remarks and anything related to social media and technology. And then of course there is our races, okay, the LGBTQ community. That is now classified as a type of abuse. That's how bad our society has become, that we've gone from 5 to about 8. It's pathetic. And that financial abuse, okay, can be from either side.
Yeah.
A man controlling all the finances and won't give his wife or significant other, okay, any access to it, demanding, all of her money, demanding that she work. That's a type of part of financial abuse, okay. To the basics that you can't have any money, you can't do anything without me, controlling how she spends any money, wanting to see the receipts to justify the money that she's spending. To women and financial abuse, okay, and using things like, well, honey, if you really loved me, you'd buy me this, okay. We all know that's unacceptable, but that's a type of financial abuse. Running up debt in the man's name is a form of financial abuse. That has gone rampant. Anything dealing with those finances that is not equally agreed to between both partners can be, let me be clear on this, can be financial abuse. Doesn't necessarily mean it is. But if you've taken steps and you've tried to have conversations and you've tried to talk to each other about it and you get resistance, there's a good chance you're dealing with financial abuse or
Now,
any other abuse.
Can I talk
Yeah.
about that for a second? Because
Yeah.
obviously I'm very big in the veteran and the first responder community. And I've heard a lot from friends of mine. They're like, the only reason I'm staying married because she's going to take half my pension. And she tells me that if you leave, I'm getting half your pension and you won't even, you'll barely be able to survive. That's
right.
Real. That is a real thing that's happening every day to veterans and first responders, male and female.
That right there, Richard, is financial abuse. That is the exact example of financial abuse. When that woman says stuff like that to her partner, that is financial abuse. And you want to get me pissed off? That's exactly the kind of shit that's going to piss me off because that is wrong. That's wrong.
Well, Christine, you said there's 8
Sorry.
different types of abuse. You said there's 8. There's actually more.
There is.
Yeah. Obviously, I've just looked it up. There's physical abuse. There's just abuse in general. There's sexual abuse. There's psychological or emotional abuse. Financial or material abuse. Modern slavery. Discriminatory abuse. Organizational or institutional abuse. Neglect or acts of omission. And self-neglect is a form of abuse. When you're neglecting yourself.
Yeah. On purpose. Yes.
Yes.
And I think also, if people are suffering from one type of abuse, the chances are they're going to be having suffering several of those types. So if they're having an abusive relationship financially, it's probably going to be emotional, psychological as well. And in fact, it's very unlikely to see one of those 15. There's a lot of overlap of many of those. So
Oh,
that's the thing, I think, isn't it? It's not just one category.
Yes, thank you, Nick, for that. You're absolutely correct. It is usually a form of, in that relationship, there's usually more than one. Okay. I could tell you for a fact that, Adam, I'm getting feedback.
You getting
Okay.
feedback?
It did, yeah. It seems to be gone now. I can tell you from my own personal experience, okay, not only did I suffer all that physical abuse, but yeah, the psychological, the sexual, the verbal, okay. His most famous comment, and he probably still says it to today, okay, his most famous comment and his go-to phrase all the time, among a whole bunch of other things, was always, "You stupid bitch. You stupid bitch." No matter what I did, what I said, I could have, come in the door one way, said hello to the dogs a different way, and it was immediate trigger for him to go, "You stupid bitch." Okay, so now we're going to get into the generational if you want. But yeah, it's usually a situation where you're not suffering just one form of abuse. There's usually and usually it will start out with some of those non-physical abuses before it goes to physical. Now, there are extreme cases where a woman will get into that relationship. He will have gaslit her, love bombed her, over the top gifts and money and extravaganza. And the minute they become, married, and that was the other thing, forcing a quick marriage. Okay. That's a big, huge red flag.
Yeah.
As soon as they get into that relationship and they are a married couple, it just takes one incident for him to get physical with her.
Okay, I want to talk about something. Another form of abuse. Right, how do I say this without sounding sexist? Is when mothers purposely, without any reason whatsoever, take the dad to court and use children as weapons against the dad.
We say parents.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Say parents. When parents do,
Yeah.
when anyone feels as though they are lost their power and control, take back your power and control. Your power and control belongs to you.
Yeah.
Let's go down that list. Physical power and control. There's absolutely nothing. I mean, kindergarten rule, keep your hands and feet to yourself. Right? Power and control, emotional power and control. Stop being such a whiny bitch. Stop being such a baby. That's unacceptable. Would you allow that person in your life, whoever your abuser is, to treat your friends like that, to treat your parents like that, to treat your children like that? If you feel as though that's not okay for someone else, it's not okay for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just reading Rebecca's message. I don't know if she wants me to share it. Do you want me to, Rebecca? That was just... But all I say is congratulations. That's all I can say. Congrats.
Yeah, way to go, girl. And yes, there was another comment earlier about, and I think, Nick, you might have touched on this a little bit, that for that person that has never experienced any type of abuse, okay, and we talked to a friend, and, one of those thoughts that immediately goes through somebody's head is, "I don't know why you stayed that long. Why didn't you leave when it first happened?" That is probably the worst thing you could ever say to a person that has been through abuse. That is the worst thing, other than, "Are you okay?" That's bad. That's karma. You don't say that. we can go through these 8, 10, 12, 15 different types of abuse, okay? But till you are actually in that situation, you cannot judge what that woman goes through or that man goes through on a daily basis. I stayed with my abuser for 7 years. I didn't have children. My children were from a first marriage, a previous marriage. They were, young adults and on their own. They didn't live in the house. The house that we lived in, I owned. It was my house. But I stayed for 7 years. There's a time and a place when that woman says, okay, you know what? Enough is enough. I can't do this anymore. And it is not our place, including mine as a victim, a previous victim of all that abuse, okay? It is not my place to say, you should have left sooner. Never will I ever say that to any woman that ever comes to me and says, I need help. Great. Where do we go from here? How do we take care of it?
I think that's the thing. So if we're supporting people, is not to be judgmental, put our judges on, because it's so easy to do, to automatically just have we've all got our own perceptions and opinions and views and things, but to be totally non-judgmental about when we're supporting someone, because it's that's the best isn't it?
Till you're actually in that situation, you can't say, well, I would have left him sooner. So you're actually in that and living it on a day-to-day basis.
And this is what we need to bring up as well, is not all men are monsters. Not all men. Some women out there are.
Can I ask a question? Because I've heard this from a lot of men that I've counseled on this subject. There's such thing as sexual abuse.
Yes.
And it's because men are not getting sex at home. A woman,
Yes.
They might be together 15 years, and then all of a sudden she cuts it off, and she's like, not literally, hopefully not literally, but
come on, Richard.
we're not talking about the bobbins. But what do you do if all of a sudden you're married for a while and then your partner says, nah, I'm good. I don't feel like having any kind of relations, but you can't have relations with anybody else either. I think that's a form of sexual abuse. Thoughts?
The question is, because a few of the things that you spoke of, Richard, really hit a spot for me. So if a man is afraid to leave a relationship because a woman is threatening to take half of his pension, he's forgotten the amazingness that he is and all that he can create in the world without the burden of having someone who's going to take half.
Yeah.
I mean, cut the pain and move on with the rest of your life. Make the rest of your life the best of your life. It's the same with if there isn't a sexual relationship anymore in a healthy relationship that can have a sexual relationship. There's so much life left to be lived. What if you have 1 year left? Do you really want that?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these things, it sounds like it's almost like blackmail, whether it's emotional blackmail or using the sexual aspect, and we know with blackmail, the worst thing is to give into it, because then you're continuing to be blackmailed, and that's the thing with the abuse. The more obviously, more longer it goes on, the harder it is to escape it, and I think that's the thing. It's a form of sort of blackmailing someone, where you say, well, if you do this, there'll be this consequence, or if you do this, I'll hold this back. That's a coercive behavior.
Well, it's like the states here. It's like the states here. We don't negotiate with terrorists, so we don't negotiate with narcissists, because just like Nancy said, Adam, I'm getting feedback again. But just like Nancy said, when you give into that, you do lose all your power. It's gone. No, and if you give into that sexual abuse or the financial abuse or whatever form of abuse, you give into that to a narcissist and you entertain their ideas, or you egg on a narcissist, you are giving your power away to that person. plain and simple. She is spot on that. Spot on.
But do you also agree that a lot of males or females, I'm not saying either one, they like the bad boy until he becomes the bad man? So it seems like a lot of times what attracted you to them is it just becomes more amplified as they get older. What are your thoughts?
Definitely. 100%, because we become the rescuers. We're the one that can fix it. It can't be fixed. It's broken and it has to fix itself. So if you are with a bad boy, it's going to get worse. It's not going to get better. You were talking about generational trauma earlier and looking for the things, the signs that will tell you if your fellow or your woman has been trained in martial arts as a child. I hope that they are a humble, peaceful warrior. Humble, peaceful warrior. I know people that are trained in martial arts that have never, ever used it anywhere but on the mat. On the mat, in the ring. Rules of engagement on the mat, in the ring. You are not anybody's punching bag. Ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they say, heavy is the head that wears the crown. And I believe, I'm a Christian, so I believe that, Jesus wasn't weak. He was meek. He was able to hold babies in sheets, but he was also able to flip tables when he had to. So I think for me, I know that if I go out and I have to kill somebody, I can, but I'm also the one that's going to be changing my daughter's diapers. So it's power under control.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is.
Yes. And that's where the abuser, he or she doesn't have it. They're just, it's not there. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not claiming to be, but I've seen it. I've talked to too many people. There's just something missing. Yes, it's empathy, but I believe there's a chemical missing in that brain that they can't control it.
Yeah.
It's just, whether it's generational or not. And generational is huge because that's where we learned it. Our environment, our upbringing, our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents. That's where we learn how to have communication. That's where we learn. Richard, you said it in the beginning, your children are learning how to have relationships. Now, a person like me, okay, how did I learn to have my relationships? Because I was molested and sex and everything else. I associated for a very long time that love meant I had to have sex, that there had to be some sort of sexual component to love. That was what I was taught. I didn't know any better till I got, up in my late 40s and early 50s and went, oh, wait a second, that's not love. But I had to learn it or relearn.
Well, absolutely. And when you look at sexual grooming,
Yep.
look at the way that you are being treated, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Are you being courted in a relationship? Good courting. Are you being treated well in life? Are you treating others well in life? I mean, we can talk about the abuser. The abused has as much responsibility. One common denominator in life, and that's you.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want, if any guys are out there that are watching this, I want to give you one piece of advice that I've learned. If you don't date your wife, another man will. Like tonight, I'm going to see Barry Manilow at Radio City Music Hall because my wife loves Barry Manilow. My wife gets flowers at least once a week for no damn reason, just because I love her. So guys, if you don't date your wife, another man probably will.
Okay, and that's what I want to bring up as well, because and I know Kerry does this, and I know she means it as a joke, but when a man buys flowers for that woman, and the woman's response is, "What do you want, or what have you done?" I want to discuss that.
Well, it's funny because every time I go buy flowers, somebody says, the lady that I'm checking out, she's like, "What'd you do this time?" And I'm like, "I'm just doing it because I love my wife, and I know her love languages. That's why I love the book, The 5 Love Languages. And if you know your partner and study your partner like a book, then you'll know what they like, what they don't like. So for me, I don't do things just because to do things. I live my life on purpose, and I know if it makes my wife happy, then I'm going to do it. So,
Examine the trigger. Examine the trigger, Adam. My dear friend, examine the trigger.
See,
Not,
like
not,
Kerry's
not,
just
not the
put now.
gun, not the gun, the trigger. So for you, what does that feel? What do those words evoke in you? Right?
Honestly,
Because
like Kerry's just put it now, I only buy flowers when I've done something. I know that's not true.
well, then it's a conversation starter. It's a beautiful conversation starter.
Absolutely.
I know there's certain phrases that will really like, we need to talk. As soon as I hear those words,
Sure.
I'm like, oh no, right? Like, and my mind starts to go into very dark places. So I investigate those places and I write them down immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately I write them down so that I can say to that person, this is what I thought when I heard those words. Not this is what not when you said those words. When I heard the words, we need to talk, I thought this. Again, owning what it is about me.
Yeah,
Got to own it.
absolutely. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, but this is for Adam, my brother Adam, the guy
Here we go.
I love that beast that you are.
I am.
I know that in recovery, I'm going on 36 years now. We talk about triggers. You just said you were talking about triggers. An adult is usually going to act out if they're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. If they're one of those four, that means I'm either heading for a relapse or I'm heading for a bad day. And I think we, as we grow and mature, we need to know our own triggers. So we know, hey, if I'm feeling a certain way, this is going to happen. So I need to change the situation. What are your guys' thoughts on knowing your triggers?
I've now learned the word trigger. We're in full responsibility, full control over our triggers. We're in full control over them. Because at the end of the day, when we're a child growing up, we can't control shit. But when we're adults, we have full control over our responses to that. And if we want to walk away from that, we can. And for example, going back to narcissistic behavior, if for example, during COVID times, if we're trapped with an abuser, is it hard? Yes, but there's always a way out. And if people can't find one, because there's always someone.
For women that are at work, working women, one of the ways that we can do that if we're in front of a computer is to leave a note on our computer. Just right on the computer itself, type it out.
Yeah.
Type it out. If I'm not here in the morning, if I don't show up to work in the morning, come and check on me. This is my address. This is my phone number.
Or
Good one, I like that.
Or even doing even one better than that, come up with a code word. And if someone mentions that code word, something's up.
There's so many solutions. So many solutions.
So many.
Yeah.
So many. Go on, Nick.
On the triggers thing, I think we all have things that trigger us, and words have power. Like some of the things Nancy says, or some just 3 simple words can have a big effect on us. We all have things that will trigger us. I think I think we all know this, that we can't control other people's behaviour. We can only really fundamentally control our reaction, what we do in response to it. And and I think that's a challenge. I think sometimes we want to change other people's behaviour. It's natural, whether it's in a relationship with someone who's treating us badly, but we care about them still, or whether it's if it's friends, it's colleagues, family. We want to change. It's natural, I think, to want to change people's behaviour if they're acting in a negative way. But the reality is, we can only really change our response to that behaviour and what we do as a result of that. But we all have triggers. And being aware of our triggers will affect how we respond to them.
Absolutely. Did you want to say something?
I had a coach just a few short months ago that actually said to a few of us, suffering is a choice.
Is that feedback again?
You're doing it too.
Yeah, I hear it.
Just feel-
Is it me?
I don't know, because I heard you and I heard me.
Can
No, it's
you
gone.
two hear? Can you three hear an echo?
Not now, but before, yes.
Briefly before, but no.
That's weird.
So what I was
Nancy,
saying,
it's not
Adam,
AI, is it? Go on,
so
Christine.
what I was saying is that a very good friend of mine who's a coach said to a few of us in a coaching session, suffering is a choice. And when you really think about that, we can either choose to suffer or we could choose to not.
Yeah.
We could choose to be bitter or we could choose to do better. It's something that resonated when you guys brought up triggers. I mean, another example that I because it was a trigger that took me a very long time to get over was slamming doors. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, like it could have been car doors, bedroom doors, front door, back door. It didn't matter. Any door slam was an immediate trigger. And it was mine because if somebody else, if that person got out of the car and they slammed the door, they didn't get triggered. But if they slammed the door, I got triggered. And it was something that I had to understand, where did it come from? Well, okay, going through and learning this was, well, then it came from him, because every time he came in anywhere, we had to slam the door to make sure our presence was known.
Sure.
He was home. He was here. He's God. But it was my trigger, nobody else's. And it's my trigger to fix. It's my trigger to raised voices. Yes, that's a huge one too. That's probably generational. That probably came from a father, mother, grandfather, definitely coming in and always had to be loud to have their presence known. That's a weak person. That's a weak individual.
Absolutely. So my final question, and this is to everybody, even in the comments as well. To you, from your experience, what's the difference between a trigger and an experience?
I didn't hear that part. I'm sorry, you broke up.
Right. Obviously, what people seem to think when we're in the mental health crisis or whether we're being abused, we're suffering. We're absolutely suffering. So what's the difference between all of that, suffering, triggers, whatever, compared to actually experiencing it? The experience. What's the difference from our own experience?
It's the way that
I've
we
got more
travel.
thinking
It's
now.
the way that we travel. It's the way that we travel in the experience. So if you're traveling through the experience, through the eyes of the observer, you're seeing what's happening around you with clarity. I understand that this person said something and I'm responding how. It's traveling through the experience. As soon as you get stopped in the experience, like, you said what? Right? When you are responding defensively or offensively, it's being that nice, calm, gentle breeze. when you get disrupted, it's okay. It's okay to be activated or triggered. It means you're alive and you're a human being. How are you responding?
Mhm.
And are you breathing? Are you
Exactly.
breathing?
Yeah.
Are you breathing?
Yeah. Anyone else?
Well, for me, it's knowing who you are, knowing your value. Like for me, I'm not afraid to eat alone.
No.
I'm not afraid. I know what I bring to the table. Matter of fact, I brought the fucking table. So I know that if somebody's around me and I don't need them around me, well, then you got to go because I know who I am. I know what I stand for, and I know my value and my worth. And I think once you learn your value and your worth, that once you have one of these situations, you're going to be like, no, I'm going to take myself out of this situation because I deserve to be treated better.
Yeah. Yeah. Go on, Christine, with all the barriers that have come in your life.
I have to agree with Nancy on the way she answered that is spot on again. I love you, woman. You're just so awesome. I hope one of my thoughts is that I hope we covered enough to let the listener know that you're not alone. You're never alone. If you think there may be a problem, reach out to one of us, somebody. Okay. Nancy, you talk about your book. You have an ebook out there, 50 red flags, 50 toxic traits. Okay. It's a very quick, easy read. But if you think you're in a situation, send out an email, a DM or whatever. And I'm not pushing
A yellow
myself.
flag is a red flag too, right? A yellow
Yes,
flag
thank
is
you.
just a flag
Yes.
turning red. It's
Yes.
just turning a red. As soon as you feel that,
Yes.
question it. A
That's-
person that's
that's-
done nothing, a person that has nothing to hide or argue about welcomes discussion. It's discussion. Or is it?
Mm-hmm. Nick.
Yeah, I guess final thoughts. With a trigger and experience question, I mean, to me, a trigger is like an automated response. Is that you get something happens or someone says something, you automatically do it, and that's often through your experience. I think experiences can be positive or negative, but I like to think that we can learn something from our experiences, but a trigger we don't. Yeah, just that auto response is through sort of conditioning. I just want to say that that Christy said right at the beginning about one of the three hardest words is "I need help," and that really resonated with me. And I think that's such a reflection of society. Why are those words so hard to say? Because I can relate to that even myself. I know that sometimes asking people for help is hard, and I think that is something we need to fundamentally change because it should be a positive thing to ask for help and to help others. And I think if we were better, we could change the way, the sort of society, in a way that actually asking for help is a good thing and helping others is a good thing. Then actually, perhaps we could reduce.
A lot.
Yeah, we could reduce.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I think that's it for everybody. Thank you to everyone, all the newcomers in the comments. Brilliant. Please all share this. It's another powerful topic. Next week, we've got Ashley back. And obviously, these beautiful people will be returning as well, as we're going to be discussing. And I think this is going to be another trigger warning video where we're discussing the 12 months of recovery. So, obviously, if people's had a drinking problem, if they've been using substances, or even mental health, like with a plan of when you've been fucked over by too many people you thought was loving people, a 12-month plan of recovery. We're going to be diving into that. So,
and hopefully, I would really like to talk about how to get through the holidays because November 1st, the holiday season starts, and it's called hurricane seasons in recovery. So I would love to talk about how to make it through the holiday season unscathed and to make it mentally healthy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Obviously, we can talk about that.
That holiday season starts at Thanksgiving, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, see, Thanksgiving here in Canada is on Monday, so I don't know why it's a different day. I'm beyond understanding how all that works.
Well, unfortunately, here in the States, Richard's right. We pretty much start October 31st, or the week before Halloween. And it's just typical of giving that alcoholic or drug addict an excuse to, oh, well, we're coming into the holidays, so I got to drink.
Yep.
Been there, done that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, looking a bit ahead, and I mean a bit further, Christmas. I think Christmas is known that to be one of the most stressful times with an increase in mental health issues of people, because it's for many reasons of family being together and the pressure of finances. So yeah, holiday seasons and events can be.
Well, that's perfect then, because obviously in 2 weeks' time, obviously it's an earlier show. And it's actually called How to Reclaim Your Life.
That'd be a good one. Yeah, that'd be a good one.
It's an earlier show.
Okay.
So yeah,
I
I think everyone's interested in here. So it looks like we're gonna have Christine every single week and Richard every single week. Right. Well, I'm gonna end this. Thank you all, and please subscribe if you haven't already, and share this. So I will see you all next.